Hello everyone and welcome to Angel in Danger, a 3D platformer I am currently playing with the DualShock 4, and I do recommend you use a controller because playing with a keyboard breaks some things, most noticeably the signs. You cannot close the prompts on the signs if you use a keyboard for some reason. Anyway, Angel in Danger is a 3D platformer that you may have guessed is inspired by Mario 3D Land. It's fairly transparent about that given the look. Look, I can close the prompts. Anyway, it's fairly transparent about its inspiration given the look. And if you look at the developer's official trailer for Angel in Danger, you'll see that they themselves put in Mario 3D Land as the game in the game description box part of the description, which I'm not sure is ethical, but you know, that pretty much confirms it, as if the art style wasn't enough, and the camera angle, and the mechanics. The game has so many features and ideas that not just Mario, but so many other platformers have had before it, and that's not necessarily bad. Here's a cloud you can bounce on multiple times to make more halos come out, halos being the coins of this game. So it's similar to a coin block in Mario in that regard, except you bounce on it instead of jump under it. There are slot reels at the end of each level that appear if we get the 3 stars hidden in each level. The slot reels say try your luck. They're not joking. It's very unlikely to get an item from those. Anyway, more about the game mechanics of Angel in Danger. Anything I tell you, basically, you're going to see coming. Our basic moveset is simply running and jumping, but as you've been seeing, we can shoot arrows if we find them, which acts as the fireball power-up. And that also gives us an extra hit. If we get hit while we have the bow and arrow, we simply lose the arrows and bow. We do not die. We can also get wings, which act pretty much like the Tanuki suit in Mario, except maybe a bit more forgiving. Lets you get away with a bit more, probably, than Mario does. The arrows have a very nice auto-aim on them. You have to aim the arrows if the enemy is far away from you, but if the enemy is close to you, the arrows auto-lock. I'm not sure if that's an intentional bit of balance, but I find it to be quite nice. The idea that if you want to hit an enemy from further, you need to actually aim, but if you're in immediate danger, the arrow aims itself. I quite like that. The game's levels in the first world, not a lot to talk about, as you might have guessed by the fact I've been talking about the game as a whole instead of the levels we've been playing. But the third level in every world is a castle level. That's because there are 6 levels in each world, which means the third level is the halfway point through the world, and if the inspiration by Mario wasn't clear, Mario does have castle levels halfway through each world as well. So that's why these are here. And I would desperately love to talk about the level and game design, but I'm not sure I could offer anything beyond a surface level analysis, something akin to just telling you how things work, like, don't jump when the spike ball is where it's gonna hit you. Jump when it's swinging away from you. Make sure you hit the enemies before they walk into you. The flying enemies are harder to hit. You can jump on all the enemies to get an extra boost. You can't jump on the spiky enemies. You know, shit you already know. Because you've played video games before. And if you haven't, I just explained pretty much every single thing you need to know about the enemies. This game isn't going to throw any curveballs at you. The moving platforms will move in ways you've always seen moving platforms move. The halos will be in places you've always seen coins before. The enemy types and hazards are things you've seen a million times as well. That's not to say any of them are bad, but I feel like it may be insulting your intelligence to talk about them in depth, because there's no depth there. And it's not like the fact that you've seen them before is the issue. It most certainly is not the issue. These enemy types, these platform types, everything the game has, you could use everything it has to make a much more challenging and interesting game. I don't think you'd even need to change the programming all that much. Just, you know, move the enemy and platform placement around a bit. Something that can be said very positively about this game is that it controls fantastic. Assuming you're using a controller, the Angel is hyper-responsive, they move and stop on a dime. If you miss a platform, it is 100% your fault. The controls are in no way floaty, loose, or anything other than just absolute perfection. The game controls flawlessly, but the game also never uses that to its advantage. The platforming is so casual, even on the final world. And I don't mean to say the game being casual is bad. It clearly has no interest in being hyper-challenging or any such thing. But the thing about being casual is, I don't think it's enough just to exist and not do anything wrong. You have to have an identity, you have to have something. Like even Siggy, which is arguably even easier than this game. Arguably, because the bosses in Siggy are definitely quite harder than anything in this game. But you can take... Anyway, even Siggy, which is arguably easier than this game, has quite a lot going for it in spite of it being casual and meaning to be beaten by anyone. Siggy's not there to challenge or exhilarate anyone either, you know. But the thing about Siggy is that it has so much more to it than meets the eye. Yeah, you jump and throw projectiles, but there's also a lot of hidden areas and collectibles, more collectibles than you would expect from a game like Siggy. The inspiration from Ghosts and Goblins in the visual design and combat is clear, but it does something completely different with the combat, making it a lot more satisfying using the screen shaking and making the combat generally easier and adding far more enemies than you usually see in Ghosts and Goblins, all clumped together. There's also the weird atmosphere and personality that Siggy has, very reminiscent of old Genesis platformers, what with the farting and the sentient evil fries and all of that good stuff. You're not going to see any of that in Angel in Danger. Angel in Danger is as safe a platformer as you can possibly have. There's nothing striking or outstanding about the visuals, about the game design, about the controls, about anything. There's nothing special about this game to make me recommend it. Like, even Whittletree, which is arguably more simple than this game mechanically, by quite a bit, has a lot more going for it in terms of level design, visual design, and especially music, because this game uses free music from Kevin MacLeod. But there are no sentient fries or farts or cute wood creatures or fairy tears or freaky cat things with long legs or ice cream cone spike enemies or anything weird or interesting like that in this game. You know, if you wanted a Mario 3D Land inspired game and you wanted it to be nothing but that, like you're like, man, I want a Mario 3D Land inspired game, but I don't want it to try and do anything to get its own identity, then Angel in Danger is 100% your deal. Like, it even follows the same world structure as a lot of Mario games. First there's the grassy world, then there's the obligatory sand world, gotta have an ice level in there, and the final world needs to have lava and stone and some metal moving platforms in it. You know, that kind of stuff. You may figure they'd do more with the whole angel angle, like give you unique abilities and make unique mechanics that you would figure would fit with like the whole angel thing. But all you really get is the wing power-up, which acts similar to the Tanuki suit in that it lets you hover by tapping the button. It's really just, I mean, it doesn't even need to be angels. You could replace the character model with anything, and it would be fine. Nothing about the levels or world look particularly angelic or mythical. Like, you could just swap out the character models, and you could just, like, kind of sell this as a completely different platformer with a different name very easily. It's just not a remarkable aesthetic. There's nothing here about the game visually that's worth your time thinking about or looking at. I mean, it's not gross or anything. The visuals are okay. They're not offensive, but the game as a whole is not offensive. As was already said, that's not enough, though. You can't just not do anything wrong and have that be your thing. You need to have something else. And when I played through this game, completed it the first time, you know, that was that. That was the case. I was like, Well, there's nothing wrong with this game. It feels good to play, it controls fine, it looks colorful. If someone wanted a Mario 3D Land inspired platformer that didn't try to do its own thing, but, you know, still had different level design, like some sort of weird expansion pack on the original game or something, then this does that, and it's $1.50, so, you know, what the fuck ever. But it didn't turn out that way. I really wish it did. I really wish I could just be here like, oh, Angel in Danger doesn't do anything wrong, but if this is what you want, then this is exactly what it has for you. It's exactly what it looks like. Bam. Perfectly as advertised. Game is exactly what it advertised on the box. Go get it if you want this, is what I would like to say. But there are some fundamental problems with the game. First of all, the keyboard controls are ass. They're just the worst. Sometimes the jump is not responsive at all with the keyboard controls. And God help you if you try to read any signs with the keyboard controls, as the prompt will get permanently stuck on screen. So, a controller is completely mandatory if you want to play this. But, you know, I can overlook that. This is a small indie game. Programming keyboard controls for a 3D platformer is hard as shit. And the game controls absolutely gorgeously with a controller. It controls fucking flawlessly if you have an actual controller to use. So, I can overlook that just fine. Something I can't overlook, though, is that, and you don't see this because I cut it out, but sometimes the hit detection on chunks of the level just goes fucking away. Now, I assume this is because the game is block-based, similar to Mario 3D Land, so it's easier for specific parts of the world to lose their hit detection. But, it's still not excusable. Like, sometimes you'll be, like, tearing your way through a level, have both the bow and arrow and angel wing power-ups, and you'll have collected your last star for the level and on your way to the exit, and then you'll just fall through the fucking ground because the next block doesn't have hit detection for some reason. And then you restart the level and suddenly it has hit detection again. The first time it happened, I convinced myself it was just a one-off thing. I was in the very first level, and one of the clouds with a star on it just didn't have hit detection. I just kept falling through it. And I was like, okay, it's a one-time thing, you know, this happens. Then I play a few more levels. I cross a bridge, I fall through the floor after I cross the bridge. I play through a few more levels, fall straight through a platform in World 3, and it just kept happening. And I tried, but I could not for the life of me find a fucking pattern as to why this happened. It was never the same platforms. It was always a different area every time. I couldn't find any specific event that triggered the hit detection to disappear, and restarting the level always seemed to fix it. And this was immensely irritating. Like, if I knew what was causing the hit detection to spontaneously disappear, I could rationalize it and maybe tell you how to avoid it or something like that, but sometimes it's just, you know, you're walking along, running straight through a level, and then, oops, the ground's not ground anymore. And it always happens with the, how do I put this? The world is segregated into blocks, right? It always happens when you cross from one block onto another. It's not like the hit detection disappears on a platform you're already on. It disappears on the next platform you run or jump to. So it's an even nastier surprise than the hit detection just disappearing entirely. Because you get to see yourself make what should have been a perfect jump, but you fall through the platform and die instead. As I said, I assume, and this is a pretty big assumption, that the glitch has something to do with the game being block-based and segregated into such basic geometric shapes. But I can't be sure what exactly is causing this shit to happen. As for any other flaws, there aren't really any. That's basically it. I mean, I know that's a big basically, is that sometimes the hit detection just fucking decides not to work. But as you've been seeing, the game for the most part is perfectly inoffensive. These hazards, the way the hazards are laid out, the enemies, the way the enemies are laid out, the level design, everything, You've seen it a million times before. The game has no unique identity. It doesn't try to do anything new or interesting with the old ideas it's using. It's functional. And I can't tell it to be something it doesn't want to be. It obviously didn't want to be challenging or be something really special. It didn't want to have new ideas or do something to give it its own identity. I get that. If it wanted to do that, it would have. But I keep imagining, what if it did? You know, what if it did use what it had to greater effect? Because all the ingredients are here for something so much better. The jumping controls are so precise that you could bounce from one enemy's head to another perfectly, and that could be used for some really great platforming where you're jumping over open air on enemies' heads. Or there could be enemies that require you to bounce on specific parts of their body using the massive air you get from jumping on them. You know, sort of like a Simon Says deal, but with an enemy type. There's just so much potential in the fact that you can bounce really high off enemies' heads alone. The way the weapon auto-aims, the bow and arrow I mean, means they could have put way more enemies on screen. Especially since the hit detection is so lenient in your favor. The platforms could be, and really should be, spaced further apart because you can often skip platforms simply by jumping over them and landing on the next one. None of the boss ideas are inherently bad, but they could all be expanded on for something greater. Like, you saw that giant bee boss we fought at the end of World 1. I mean, the idea there is really cool. The idea is that the bee, by default, is always above you, so you need to get above it. But getting above it is so easy and anticlimactic, you know? It's just short of straight jumping on its head. They could have incorporated the bouncing on enemies, they could have made the platforming to get above the bee more difficult, they could have made the bee move faster. There's so many ways they could have made that boss really interesting and really explored the concept of needing to get above an enemy that flies while you can't fly. Could have been really cool. And again, I don't mean to say that Angel in Danger should have done these things, or that my ideas are better than Angel in Danger's, because if it wanted to do those things, it would have. The thing about this game is that it was made this way for a reason. The developers had the tools to make something more challenging, but they deliberately chose not to. So I'm not suggesting Angel in Danger should have been what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying I see the potential for that, and the potential I see in it definitely would have made the game more unique. Definitely would have given it a much stronger identity. But that isn't what the game wanted to be. It wanted to be this, what you're seeing right now. And for the most part, there's nothing wrong with this, aside from the aforementioned hit detection issues. I just wish they would have taken some risks somewhere, you know? Granted, compared to the developers' other games, this seems hyper-polished by comparison, but I'm not sure polishing your game adequately for release is really a risk by itself, necessarily. But it's the kind of thing I could definitely see people spending $1.50 on. I really don't think it should be $1.50 given the hit detection stops working sometimes. Maybe just $1 would be ideal in that case. But, you know, if everything about the game worked, then $1.50 for, what is this game, like 40, 50 minutes, maybe an hour your first time through of 3D platforming, and you can go back and 100% it later to unlock new costumes. Sure, I could see someone getting on board with that. I mean, it worked on me. I played through this game once, and then I played through it a second time to 100% it, and then a third time to record it for you guys, but most people will probably only play it twice. I suppose I also shouldn't underestimate, you know, the game does feel good to control and play. I get that's a big deal for some people, and as I've already stressed twice, the controls are absolutely great if you're using a gamepad. So if the game controlling really well, the fact that it feels really good to jump and run, if that's really important to you, then the game probably has significantly more value. Personally, I see the appeal in that, but it doesn't really add any extra value to the game for me, but I understand it might for some people. I'm just saying, the last time I played Whittletree, definitely not the final time I'm going to play Whittletree. I will probably play Whittletree again this year before Whittletree 2 launches. And then I will probably play it again next year. And the year after that, and the year after that, and I'll just keep playing it indefinitely until either it dies or I die. Angel in Danger could go without it. You know, Whittletree Adventures describes itself as an art game mixed with a traditional platformer. Art game means different things to everyone, but I think it means art game in the sense that the environment is really artistic and surreal. And I can absolutely see that. This game, I don't know how to describe what this game is besides it's like Super Mario 3D Land. Like, you saw that boss. The boss is a giant bug. What's mythical or angelic about this giant bug we're jumping on, huh? But what kind of special significance or artistic direction led to that giant bug? It's just a generic giant bug in a generic desert setting in a generic 3D platformer. Whittletree's mission statement, according to the official text written by the developer, is to bring happiness to every soul. Mission statement of Angel in Danger, I can only assume it's be like Super Mario 3D Land. The actual mission statement is apparently to bring back the 3D platforming action that was missing from today's phone games, but I don't feel like that's terribly accurate. I don't see that desire in this game. I don't see that here. I don't see a passionate desire to fulfill something that they thought was missing. I'm just not getting that from the game. I'm pretty sure I missed a star in one of those levels back there, and I should go back and get it. But, this was originally a phone game. The PC version controls and looks a lot better, but its mission statement was apparently to bring back the 3D action platforming that was missing from modern phone games, and I don't see that desire here. I don't see a desire for anything besides to make a 3D platformer inspired by Mario that controls really well. And if you're into that, that's fine. That's what you get. So that was Angel in Danger. It's fine. If you can get past the hit detection not working, it's fine. And here's the missing star. Way over here. Alright, I'll see you guys later.